What exactly is Knull after? And what did we learn after the Last Dance trailer? Why is it imperative that Venom and Eddie need to separate, lest the entire rest of the world die? Recently, we've been taking a deep dive into the character of Knull in order to explore his backstory and motivations, and we've covered some interesting ground in the last few weeks. What we haven't touched on, however, is what Knull wants in Venom 3, and why it seems to be setting up the inevitable separation from Eddie and Venom. So come along with us today, and let's talk about a few key lines in the trailer that seem to set up a larger plot line. For this video, we'll be covering 3 lines in particular, starting with one from the most recent trailer, which is, "There is a key that will free him." This seems to be referring to the fact that Knull is somehow captive. We do know that in the comics there was a revolt against Knull, in which the Clintar imprisoned him in the heart of their world, and this is supported by the line, "We have something that he needs." The purpose is simple. Venom and Eddie have something about them that Knull is looking for, and it may very well be the key that Venom alludes to in the most recent trailer. But we don't think that Knull needs a physical item. Instead, we have reason to believe that Knull is after their bond, which we already know is unique among other pairings of symbiotes and host. So far, Venom and Eddie have not come across a physical object that fits this description, so in order for Knull to be chasing them in order to find a literal key, the key would need to be introduced at the beginning of the movie. It's possible that the opening minutes will see the pair come across this key, and then be tasked with protecting them. But we think the truth is a bit more complicated. In the first Venom, it was established that a Clintar can only bond with an organic host for a short period of time before it kills them, and the comparison used in that film is that the symbiotes behave similarly to an organ transplant. In order to permanently take hold, the symbiote and the host have to be perfectly compatible with one another, which is exceedingly rare. Right now, we don't know of any of them to test or measure the compatibility aside from simply working through trial and error, which would result in several deaths of incompatible hosts. Eddie and Venom, however, are a perfectly compatible match. We believe that this is a breakthrough in exactly what Knull wants. Knull is the eldritch god of ancient darkness, and this is usually what he's most well known for, but he's also a scientist and an engineer. He created the symbiotes, but he didn't do so through magic or godhood. He didn't just spawn them into existence. Instead, Knull forged them through complex science and grueling craftsmanship. Knull slaved away for hours in his forges in order to temper his weapons, which means that above all else, the symbiotes are scientific creations. This is important because we know that science, especially creation-based sciences, are always evolving over time, and this is no exception. Even though Knull is far more advanced than any human, he still has not perfected his craft, at least not yet. In the Venom films, is it possible that the symbiotes are designed to be perfectly bonded to a host, but Knull has not yet made this breakthrough yet? What if he is trying to find a way to make symbiotes perfectly compatible with other organisms, but he still needs more research in order to figure out exactly how and why this occurs? If this is the case, then it may indicate that the bond between Venom and Eddie is exactly the breakthrough that he has been looking for. The symbiotes are lab rats, and if Knull gets word that one of them was able to form a perfect symbiosis with a human, then he will stop at nothing to capture the two of them, bringing them back to his lab and begin his experiments. Eddie and Venom would be dissected and studied in order for Knull to figure out how to replicate this result, and this is shown perfectly in the trailer. Next, we know that the trailer is setting up the unavoidable separation of Eddie and Venom, with the line, "As long as Venom lives, everything dies." And then subsequently, "The world can't survive if you two stay together," being said of course to Eddie and Venom. Something about Venom being alive puts the rest of the world in danger, and this fits neatly to the idea that he's going to be hunted by Knull for essentially creating the perfect bond. But we believe that we can go even further. We know that Venom is not the only symbiote on Earth, and it's revealed that they didn't land here by accident. Instead, they were running away from something. But this destination was specifically chosen by the symbiote refugees that landed here. They had the entire galaxy to choose from and could have run anywhere, but they chose Earth. And it may be because the symbiote refugees also caught word of this perfect bond. We know that symbiotes have a hive mind, which can communicate information across entire universes. So the symbiotes in Venom's own background would almost certainly learn that he had a perfect bond with a human host, and they would want this as well. They've learned that there is a planet where they have a chance of bonding with an organism and forming an unrivaled symbiosis, and if this is the case, symbiotes from across the galaxy will be flocking to Earth. In January 1848, a handyman by the name of James Marshall worked for a farmer by the name of John Sutter. As part of his job, Marshall constructed a water wheel on the banks of a nearby river, and on one fateful morning, he came across a jam in the system. When he went down to investigate, he found a gold nugget large enough to clog the system, and it was this single discovery that would lead to the single largest mass migration in American history. One plot of gold ore lodged beneath Sutter's mill led to the American Gold Rush. 300,000 people flocked to California in search of riches, and even though the vast majority of them never found anything, it was still amazing. And we believe the same thing is happening with the Clintar. The symbiotes learned of riches in this distant backwater world, and they are flocking here in search of gold. Each of them wants to find their perfect match, the final bond that will never be unmade. Because remember, symbiotes need to form bonds in order to survive, but they have to jump between hosts since the host will inevitably die. Hosts simply can't survive a symbiote for too long, so each symbiote is working on finding a way to survive. So finding out about a world where they can make their perfect bond would be very alluring. So now we know of the two threats venturing to Earth, caused by the bond between Eddie and Venom. First, we know that Knull has sent agents down to Earth in order to apprehend Eddie and Venom, and this seems to be the adaptation of the xenophage, so whatever is special about their bond may be a metaphorical key in question. But we'll get into how it can free Knull in just a moment. We speculated before that the xenophages in this universe are most likely a creation of Knull rather than their own race of entities. But for more on this, please check out our video on the xenophage. Regardless, however, the Earth may not be directly threatened by Knull depending on his intentions. Knull could very well want to just send the xenophage down, take Venom, and return to Clintar, leaving the rest of the world in peace. But the planet itself is still being threatened by the surge of symbiotes, refugees. Even if Knull does not want to conquer the planet as a whole, the flock of symbiotes who are surging towards Earth would see the eventual eradication of the human race. Knull could very well show up, take Venom, and then leave to conduct his experimentation. But the word is already out now. Symbiotes would continue to land on Earth and bonding with humans as they try to find their perfect host, and there is no telling how many people would die in this process. Just one symbiote could move between dozens of people, trying to find its perfect match, and inadvertently killing the host in the process. This, multiplied by several symbiotes, whether it's a few or a dozen or 1,000, things will look bleak for humanity very quickly. The only way to avoid this is to cut off communication between Venom and the rest of the Clintar. But if Venom's hive mind is powerful enough to transmit information from across universes, this does not seem like the kind of thing that can be turned on and off. He could be transmitting a signal across every reality that this version of Earth is the best place for the Clintar, their eternal home. As for the promise of a key, however, we believe that there is in fact something that is holding Knull on Clintar the planet, and that he cannot escape his home unless he can discover the secret to a perfect bond. Even though he is the creator of the symbiotes, they evolve and grow largely on their own, so it's possible that he is, for whatever reason, unable to bond with his own creations. Once he figures out how to stabilize the bonding process, then Knull may be able to finally join with his own symbiotes, escape Clintar, and wreak havoc on the rest of the universe. If Knull's comic origin is to be believed, there would have to be an aspect holding him on Clintar, because Knull can traverse space with no issue. But exactly what is holding him there is yet to be revealed. But anyway, friends, what do you think of Venom 3 and the idea that Venom is setting up a sort of gold rush for every symbiote in the galaxy? Is Knull after this perfect bond? As always, my friends, Hulk smash that subscribe button for more Marvel lore, and I hope you're having a great day.